This is Talking Drupal, a discussion about web design and development by a group of guys with one thing in common. We love Drupal. This is episode 159, Helpful Modules. Good afternoon, panel.
Good evening. Well, good afternoon. I guess we could pretend that we're recording in California.
Right. Yes, I'm sitting here. It is in the evening. I appreciate you guys doing an evening recording with my schedule lately. So thank you.
As indicated by my nocturnal look.
Yeah, exactly. And for our new listeners, I'm Stephen Cross. Joining me is Nick Laughlin from Enlightened Development, and also John Picozzi from Oomph. So, Nick, what is new in your world? Anything new?
Oh, we had some freezing rain yesterday, and so it's starting to get to the point where I'm glad that I got a snowblower, but when it's that rainy and that snow, it doesn't quite work. So I learned to appreciate the snowblower again, and everything is a frozen sheet of ice today. So that's about all that's new for me.
That's great. And John, I think that's probably about the same for you and me as well. We got our weather update from Nick.
I actually have no snow.
Oh,
there's no snow here.
Yeah, it's so funny how we all don't live that far from each other, but the snow. Nick lives up that snow belt there, right? John and I
we get hit
to the coast, so it's a big difference.
Yep.
So, John, what's new with you? Anything?
Working on some pretty cool projects, working on some paragraphs projects, and looking at estimating our first Drupal Commerce 2X project. So
that's awesome.
Pretty excited about that.
It's great news for our listeners. They'll be able to learn a little bit more about Commerce 2 as the year unfolds.
That is true.
So this week's episode 159, which if you're looking for show notes later, or if you want to watch the video of it, you can go to talkingdrupal.com/159 and you'll see this episode. We're going to talk about helpful modules. So these aren't the mainstream modules that we use, the things that aren't required for every project, but they're kind of helper modules, I'd call them, things that we've gone to every once in a while that have done some pretty neat things. And we really have quite a diverse selection of them tonight. Kind of interesting. We all put a list together, different ideas, and let's see what we've come up with. The first one that we have tonight is called Flippy. It's for version 7. Have you guys used Flippy?
I've worked with it on a site once, but I didn't install it.
Yeah, either did I. So I've worked with it a couple of times and doing some maintenance on a site. But what Flippy does is Flippy is a module that gives you next and previous buttons on a node page. So if you look at a node page, and if what would be a good example? Can't think of any particular example.
I used it on a blog.
Okay, a blog. Yeah, there's a good example. So if you're looking at the detail page of a blog or a node page, you can put the Flippy, install Flippy, and you can put buttons at the top of or in a block on the page that are next and previous. So you can go from one node to the next one. So you can look at blog article A, click next or previous, and look at the articles before or after that one. So it's a pretty handy module. That's what it does. Very simple.
It's pretty straightforward. So this was an interesting topic for me because, having to go back over a bunch of projects, there's this few modules that you use on every single project, and trying to find the ones that you use for a particular case and remembering where you used them was kind of fun. It's trip down memory lane. However, first one I wanted...
Before you go into that, John, did you do that too? Because that's what I did. I went and looked at projects and opened up the make files and the repository of the modules and kind of looked at the module names. And a few of them I was like, oh, what is that one? I don't remember what that was. And I had to go back and look at it. That's how I came up with my list.
To be fair, yeah, I did the same thing. I opened up the Git repo, the modules folder in the project I was working on. I'm like, okay, what do I use all the time that's like super useful?
Right.
So the first one for me, though, is a little bit different. It's one that I just found maybe 2 weeks ago, and it is called Simplify Menu. It's only for Drupal 8, and it basically creates a twig extension to allow you to manipulate menus in a twig template file more easily. If any of you have ever tried to change the way a menu gets output in a twig template directly, it is horrifying. The Simplify menu just gives you a really nice structure and cut out what I assume is hours and hours of work. So if you're looking to do something a little custom with the menu, Simplify Menu is definitely helpful in Drupal 8.
Great one.
So, as I said, I went through the sites that the site I was working on this afternoon, and I looked for modules that I install on every site. And like every morning, I start off my day with coffee. The coffee module for Drupal is no different. Every website I work on, Drupal 7 or Drupal 8, I install coffee. And basically what coffee is, if you're a Mac user, you're familiar with a spotlight search. It basically turns your Drupal menu into a spotlight search. So you can hit, I believe it's Command or Option D, and it'll open up a search box, and you can start typing what admin item you need in there. So like if you type to format, it would open up your text. It'd show you a list of all the things that come back for format. So you could then select from the list that it pulls up and go to that admin page. So that's actually a real life example I did just the other day. I was looking for text format. Instead of going through the navigation and going through the sub navigation, I opened up coffee, typed in format, text format popped up. I clicked on it and I went off and I edited whatever text format I needed to.
John, is this module only for development, or can you actually use it on the user side of the site as well?
No, it's only for admins. Okay. So, it basically looks at the admin menu and indexes it, so that way it can be used with the text box to search through it.
Very cool. Okay, coffee it is. Our next one on the list is lock content. This is available in Drupal 7 and 8, and it gives you the ability to turn on a couple of things. The two major ones are ones that I've used the most. It's got a bunch of features if you look at the module page for it. And this is a quick note here. We will have links to all of these in the show notes at talkingdrupal.com/159. Links to every one of these modules, so you don't have to hunt for them later. But the two features that I've used most in this module are the preventing two users from editing the same node. So when a user goes to the edit page on a node, it puts it in a lock state. If another user comes to edit it, it will say, you can't edit this. Someone else is editing it right now. It does give you the ability to break the lock in case something got messed up there. The other feature that I probably used even more often is the ability to prevent someone from leaving a page while they're in edit mode. So if someone's editing a node and they click on a menu to leave and they haven't saved or canceled, it will prompt them before they leave so they don't leave by mistake. Very handy to have.
Just like curiosity, how is it different from course content locking?
Good question. It might not be. I'm not sure, John.
Huh? Because I know one feature is like, hey, reminding somebody like, hey, you didn't save this. That's pretty useful in and of itself. But
does the core? And I'm trying to remember because I have this on core projects. Does the core actually show you when you go into edit that it's currently locked by someone, or is it only when you try to leave?
Sometimes some content will say this content's being edited by another user.
I think you're thinking of views. I think it does. I think views does that. I don't think content does. It's just whoever saves it gets saved.
You know what? That might be absolutely accurate.
Otherwise, that module wouldn't exist. So
sometimes you use modules so often you can't actually remember if they're part of core or not.
Yeah, that happens for sure. So this next module is one that I use fairly frequently, but not everywhere, and it is called Shield. And it does one simple thing. It creates an htaccess password, or an HTTP password, rather, for your site. It's useful for development sites to prevent, Google from indexing it, or people that shouldn't have access to it from accessing it easily as well. And I use it on a number of sites, and it works well with a couple of other modules that are coming up.
It's actually great too, Nick, for Drupal 8 if you're using configuration management and config split, because you can actually have your development, your staging version, have Shield installed with a password set up, and then when you do your production split, you can have it like totally not in your project, and when you do your production deployment, it just goes away. So it's pretty awesome. We actually use Shield on a couple of our projects as well.
Yep. It's pretty nice.
Just one point I wanted to make about it. It also allows you to create exceptions. So if you're doing things like need to allow certain things into the site, you can create exceptions for it, which is handy to have.
Oh, really? I've never done that. That's interesting.
Yeah, if you have something if you're doing testing and you're doing like Facebook kind of stuff, or things that are reaching into your site from the outside, they may be blocked. So great utility.
Oh. That's pretty awesome. So the next one is something I think I'm willing to bet most people have used. And if you haven't, you should be using it. So in Drupal, we all know, whether it's Drupal 7 or Drupal 8, you have a toolbar or an admin bar at the top of the page. In the default or core Drupal, the bar is pretty flat. You have to click on buttons to go to subpages, and then select items there to go to the configuration pages, right? Well, the admin toolbar module, which is the admin toolbar, is a module for Drupal 8. If you're looking for a Drupal 7 equivalent, it's actually called admin menu. But basically what this does is it enhances that admin menu to be able to have drop-downs. So that way you can have nested drop-downs and be able to see, 2 or 3 levels deep into that admin interface without having to click through each page. Saves a bunch of time. Admin toolbar actually also has another module with it. I think it's admin toolbar extras or something to that effect, that enables a few other pretty nifty features, like being able to clear cache right from the admin toolbar, and do some other pretty typical administrative tasks.
Great. Next one on the list. This solves the issue of, or helps try to solve the issue of, you've got a dev environment, a test environment, and a production environment, and your content administrators are bouncing between those environments, and they get confused about which one they're in. This module, called Environment Indicator, will allow you to set some bars at the top of your admin to a certain color based on what environment they're sitting in. So the red environment is production, green is development, and yellow is test, something like that. Very handy to have. It's great for developers and admin, make sure they don't get messed up.
It's actually
pretty useful.
It's actually interesting because we do something similar to this with again with config split, and we change the titles of the individual environments. So it starts off with like, hey, this is the development environment, or hey, this is the staging environment.
You can do that in here as well.
Yeah, that's pretty useful.
And so the next one is one that I use fairly often, and it's kind of different from the other ones we were talking about, or most of the other ones we're talking about. It is called Video Embed Field. And it is one of the coolest video modules out there. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, before I found this, you always had to have a special case to embed a video, or teach somebody how to get the embed code or something. Well, this module lets you just copy and paste the URL. It works for both Vimeo and YouTube, and I believe Brightcove as well. And you just not by default. I think. Oh, okay. So there's an add-on. So there's an add-on for that one, and so they just have to copy and paste the URL that they want, put it in there, and it will embed it. Gives you a bunch of different options, so you can pretty easily make it responsive or size it however you want to, and set any kind of options that you need to set. It's pretty useful, pretty nifty. And it's both for 7 and 8 as well.
And does it, Nick, out of the box, is that the module that also comes with a WYSIWYG button that you can enable?
I believe so. I try to keep away from anything and everything WYSIWYG, so I wouldn't know.
Oh boy! All right. The next
it's the Linux side of them.
Yeah. Never mind. I'm going to let that one go.
Okay.
So the next module is actually a module we just found for a project we're working on right now, and it's been around for a while. It's not a new module, I don't think, but it's the responsive menu module. And what this module does is it basically makes a responsive menu, as indicated by the name, right? The way that it works is that you give the module classes that of a menu that you want to make responsive, and it does a really great job of making a responsive mobile navigation for you. So you can you get the little collapsed hamburger at the top of the screen when you go down to your breakpoint, and then you click on it and it slides out from the left. I don't know if you can configure it to go from the right or different ways, but I'm sure there's some configuration there, and it's super easy. It works really well. We basically installed this on the site, said, hey, use the main, here's the class for the main navigation, and it just built out a perfect responsive menu for us. Oh. So it was also a time saver as well.
Great. The next one on our list is one also that's been around for a long time. I think it's one of those that I don't think you can basically theme a site without it, but maybe I'm wrong. It's called block class. And what it is a module that gives you a field on a block that you can put a class name in and then use that class when you're theming. Pretty handy to have. I could never understand why that was not put in core at some point, but maybe it will be in the future. So if you're struggling, or if you're using block names in your theming, block-123, not a great idea, but it's much better to stick a class on there.
And that's one I've used quite a bit. And the next one is one that we've mentioned a couple of times, so I figured we'd add it, and that is config split. And so it is, I believe, only for Drupal 8, but it works with the configuration management section, and it allows you to separate different environments and set rules, like we mentioned on a couple of the other modules. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's definitely super useful for splitting your development config, your staging config, your production config, and especially where you might want different variables in there. For something like payment gateways, if you're doing an e-commerce site, you want test gateways as opposed to production gateways, something like that. Config split will let you do that. So the next module is actually a module to help with assigning roles as for admins. So in Drupal, when you create a user and you don't want them to have like full ability to create users and administer roles, there's no really great way to assign that sort of permission. So here enters the role assign module. And basically what this does is it gives you the ability per role to say what roles that role can assign. And it's super useful for if you want to give a client the ability to create users, but you don't want to give them the ability to create administrator users or admin users, user one level users. You can basically go into role assign, say, hey, this user role, say web admin, can only create web admin and content admin users. And that's the only set of permissions that they'll be able to grant when they create users.
Very handy.
I think I just realized that I used the word users while describing that about 25 times. So if somebody tweets me with how many times I said it, we'll send them a new water bottle or something.
That's at John Picozzi.
Yep.
Or at Talking Drupal will work as well.
Sure. Any way you.
Go ahead. And the last one for the night.
So our last module for the night is reCAPTCHA. Now, this module is, hey, there's the dog.
There he is.
Here I was thinking that we were going to get through a show without hearing from him, our four-legged correspondent. So the last module is a module that is a better version of the CAPTCHA module. So in Drupal 7, I'm sure many people have used CAPTCHA. You know, you go to a form, you get a little box with some weird numbers and letters in it. You got to fill it out in order to submit the form. reCAPTCHA uses the CAPTCHA module as a base, but it implements Google's reCAPTCHA service, which is kind of the same sort of service as the letters at the bottom of the form, except Google's being smart about it and giving you a checkbox at the bottom of your form, and that checkbox says, "Hey, are you a person?" You check the checkbox, and it basically does a little JavaScript to determine if you're a person or not. And if it doesn't know, it'll give you a challenge. And the challenge will not be some cryptic letters and number combination that you have to type in, but it'll show you 10 pictures, and it'll say, pick the pictures of pasta or pick the pictures of cars. And you go through, you select pictures of cars, and then it says, yeah, you must be a person because you can pick cars out of a photo array. So the reCAPTCHA module allows you to add that functionality to your website. It works with Drupal 7 and 8, and it's super easy to implement. You install the module, you go get a API key from Google, and then you can basically put in the form IDs of any form on your site that you wanna add reCAPTCHA to.
Sounds cool.
Excellent. Wow, we went through 12 modules pretty quickly. I think we added a 13th on the list here as well. All right, that wraps up. I say we call this a show. What do you say, guys?
Sounds good. We should call it the Baker's Dozen of helpful modules.
Baker's Dozen, you got it.
I could talk about modules all night long.
Yeah, these people like it when we do these tools and these utility kind of shows. So we'll squeeze some more in now and again. All right, Nick Laughlin, where can people find you online?
You can find me online at NixVan, NICXVAN, pretty much everywhere.
And how about you, John?
People can find me online at John Picozzi on all the major social networks. You can find me this month at Drupal PVD at the Umfink offices in Providence. And you can find more about Umfink at umfink.com.
Ah, yes. And you can reach me online at Stephen Cross. It's real simple. And that's Stephen with a PH. Take care, guys. Talk to you soon.
See you next week.